My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a landscape architect. Our annual summer garden party was in full swing, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and the low hum of conversation. I'd spent weeks cultivating every detail, from the string lights draped over the pergola to the perfect bloom of the new dawn climbing rose that arched over our stone bench. My husband, Mark, was circulating, his laugh easy and familiar. Then I saw her. Chloe. She'd cornered him near the fountain, her hand on his arm, her head tilted just so. As I watched, a slow-motion horror unfolded. She leaned in, whispered something, and then, brazenly, she kissed him. Right there, in the middle of our party. My entire body went rigid, a silent scream caught in my throat. My hand tightened on the stem of my champagne flute, threatening to shatter the glass, but I kept my smile plastered on. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the meticulously cultivated beauty of our life was about to be uprooted. What Chloe didn't realize was that I was the one holding the spade. To understand why that kiss, in that moment, was the final, unforgivable transgression, you need to know about the foundation Mark and I had built. We'd been together for 12 years, married for 10. Ours wasn't a whirlwind romance, it was a steady, intentional growth, like a well-tended garden. We'd met in our late 20s, both of us past the initial rush of youth, looking for something real. Mark, a software engineer, was kind, logical, and had a quiet strength I admired. I, in turn, brought a creative energy and a deep love for nurturing beauty, both in our home and in my professional life. Our house, with its sprawling backyard that I'd transformed from a patchy lawn into a series of interconnected garden rooms, was our sanctuary. It was a testament to our shared vision, our hard work, and the trust that formed the bedrock of our relationship. We rarely argued, and when we did, it was always with respect, a commitment to understanding the other's perspective. Or so I thought. Chloe entered our lives about 6 months prior, a sudden re-emergence from Mark's past. They'd worked together at his first tech job, nearly 15 years ago. Mark mentioned her casually one evening, saying she'd reached out on LinkedIn. She's going through a tough time, Elle. Her husband left her, lost her job. Just needs a friend. My initial reaction was one of empathy. Mark had always been a good, loyal friend. I encouraged him to offer support, within reason. But within reason quickly became a blurry line. Chloe started texting Mark at all hours. She'd call, ostensibly to talk to him, but the conversations would often drift into vague complaints about her life, laced with subtle fishing for sympathy. Mark, ever the rescuer, would listen patiently, offering advice or just a sympathetic ear. I noticed the shift, a subtle tension in the air. Mark would sometimes take calls in another room, or his phone would be face down on the table more often. When I asked, he'd simply say, "It's just Chloe, she's really struggling." The first real alarm bell rang when Chloe started showing up at our house unannounced. The first time, she claimed she was just in the neighborhood and thought she'd drop off some homemade cookies. They were actually store-bought, and she stayed for 2 hours, mostly talking about herself, occasionally interjecting comments like, "Mark always was the most understanding man I knew," or "You've really settled him down, Eleanor, he used to be such a free spirit." I brushed it off as social awkwardness, but a seed of discomfort had been planted. Then came the loan. Mark mentioned it offhandedly one evening, a few weeks after Chloe's first unscheduled visit. Chloe needed a little help with rent, just a few thousand to tide her over until her severance came through. I told her not to worry about paying me back right away. I was floored. Mark and I had a joint account for all major expenses, and we always discussed any significant financial outlay. This was the first I was hearing of it. When I pressed him, he became defensive, saying, "She's a friend in need, Eleanor. What's the big deal? I can afford it." It wasn't the money, it was the secrecy, the unilateral decision. It felt like a betrayal of our shared financial trust. The incidents escalated, each one chipping away at my peace of mind. Chloe started making suggestions about our home, my domain. She'd comment on the placement of a vase, the color of the guest bedroom, or even the menu for our upcoming garden party. Mark mentioned he really loves spicy food, Eleanor. "Are you sure you don't want to add a jalapeno dip?" she'd say, always implying she had a special insight into Mark's preferences that I, his wife, somehow lacked. Mark, oblivious, would just nod along, sometimes even agreeing with her, which stung. I found myself subtly competing for my own husband's attention in my own home. I started noticing how she would touch him, a lingering hand on his arm, a quick brush against his back as she walked past. They were small, almost imperceptible gestures, easy to dismiss as accidental, but they added up. My landscape architect's eye, trained to spot subtle shifts in light, texture, and growth patterns, began to see a disturbing pattern emerging in our lives. Chloe wasn't just a friend, she was an invasive species, slowly but surely choking out the healthy growth. The week before the party, Chloe called Mark every evening. She was helping him finalize the playlist, or brainstorming ideas for a signature cocktail. It made me feel like an outsider in the planning of my own event. I mentioned it to Mark, gently, suggesting that maybe she was getting a little too involved. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Eleanor, she's just trying to be helpful. She doesn't have much going on right now. Can't you just be nice?" His defensiveness, his inability to see what was happening, was more painful than Chloe's actions themselves. It was then that I truly recognized what was happening. Chloe wasn't just seeking friendship or help, she was actively trying to dismantle my marriage, piece by piece, and Mark was too kind, or too blind, to see it. She wanted to replace me. The loan, the constant presence, the subtle undermining, it was all part of a calculated campaign. My heart ached, but a cold resolve began to form. I wasn't going to let her succeed. I started my own quiet preparations. I didn't confront Mark, not yet. I needed undeniable proof, something that would cut through his well-meaning naivete. I discreetly checked our joint bank account statements online. There it was, a transfer of $3,500 to a name I didn't recognize, dated 5 months ago. No memo. Mark had said it was a few thousand, but the exact amount and the lack of transparency confirmed my suspicions. I also looked at his phone, when he left it on the counter for a moment. I didn't snoop through messages, but I saw Chloe's name pop up frequently, often late at night. I took a screenshot of the transfer record, just in case. I also confided in my sister, Sarah, a no-nonsense lawyer who immediately saw the red flags I had been trying to ignore. "Eleanor," she said, her voice firm, "this isn't about friendship. This is about intent. You need to protect yourself and your marriage." Her words validated my growing unease and gave me the courage to act. I decided the garden party, the symbol of our shared life, would be the place where I would finally prune this invasive problem. The party was a beautiful facade. Guests mingled, music played softly, and the aroma of grilled peaches and rosemary filled the air. I moved through the crowd, a gracious hostess, a smile fixed on my face, but my eyes were constantly tracking. I saw Chloe, dressed in a surprisingly revealing dress, laughing a little too loudly at Mark's jokes, her hand still on his arm. The new dawn rose, a riot of soft pink blooms, seemed to mock me with its innocent beauty. I watched as Mark, perhaps a little too relaxed from a few beers, listened intently to Chloe, who was leaning in close, her voice low. Then it happened. She leaned in further, whispered something, and then, with a casual audacity, she pressed her lips against his. A full, lingering kiss. Mark's eyes widened for a split second, a flicker of surprise, before he gently pulled back. But the damage was done. I saw it. And I knew she wanted me to see it. My breath hitched, a cold tremor running through me. But instead of reacting, instead of screaming or crying, a strange calm settled over me. This was it. The moment I had prepared for. I walked purposefully towards them, a fresh bottle of Mark's favorite single malt whiskey in my hand. Chloe, still flushed from the kiss, saw me approaching and quickly pulled her hand from Mark's arm, a nervous, almost triumphant smirk playing on her lips. Mark looked at me, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I ignored him for a moment. "Chloe," I said, my voice perfectly level, a serene smile on my face, "you look like you could use a refill." I held up the bottle. "Whiskey, right?" "Your usual, neat." I poured a generous measure into her empty glass, the amber liquid glinting in the twilight. As I handed it to her, my fingers brushing hers, I leaned in slightly, my voice dropping to a low, clear tone that only she could hear. "This is your final drink here, Chloe," I said, my eyes locking onto hers, "and your final gift from me is the understanding that you will never be welcome in my home, or near my husband, again. I'm aware of everything." I held her gaze for another beat, letting the words sink in, watching the color drain from her face as the smirk vanished, replaced by shock and a dawning horror. Then, I straightened up, my smile still in place, and turned to Mark. "Darling," I said, my voice bright and cheerful, "could you help me with something in the kitchen? I need your expert opinion on the ice situation." I took his arm, gently but firmly, and led him away, leaving Chloe standing alone by the fountain, the whiskey glass still in her trembling hand. Chloe didn't linger. I saw her gather her small clutch a few minutes later, her face a mask of furious humiliation, and slip out a side gate without a word to anyone. Mark, pulled into the kitchen, was a whirlwind of confusion and stammered apologies. "Eleanor, I swear, I didn't." He started, his face pale. I held up a hand. "Mark, I saw her kiss you. And I've seen everything else. The late-night calls, the unannounced visits, the loan you never told me about, her constant undermining comments." I showed him the screenshot of the bank transfer. "I know she's been trying to drive a wedge between us. I know she wants what I have." The shame on his face was palpable. He didn't defend Chloe, didn't try to minimize it. He looked utterly defeated. "I was so stupid, Elle. So incredibly stupid. I just thought she was lonely, and I was trying to be kind." He genuinely hadn't seen it, and that was almost as painful as Chloe's betrayal. Over the next few days, the aftermath was messy but necessary. Mark immediately blocked Chloe's number and sent her a blunt email, copied to me, stating that all contact was to cease. He was profoundly apologetic, not just for his naivete, but for the pain he'd caused by allowing Chloe to infiltrate our lives. He understood the breach of trust, and he was determined to earn it back. It wasn't an instant fix, there were long, difficult conversations, and a period where I felt a constant ache of vulnerability. But we talked, really talked, about boundaries, about communication, about the subtle ways an outside force can erode a relationship if you're not vigilant. We even went to a few couples counseling sessions, not because our marriage was broken, but because we wanted to reinforce its foundations. Mark learned to trust my instincts more, and I learned that I needed to articulate my discomforts sooner, rather than letting them fester. Our garden party tradition continued, but with a renewed sense of security. The following summer, as I walked through our garden, I paused by the new dawn climbing rose. It was in full bloom again, its delicate pink petals unfurling in the morning sun. I remembered the day of the party, how its beauty had felt like a cruel joke. Now, as I gently pruned a stray branch, guiding it back onto the trellis, I saw it differently. A garden, like a marriage, requires constant care, vigilant tending. Sometimes, you have to cut away the invasive elements, no matter how subtly they try to entwine themselves. It's not about vengeance, it's about protecting the core, ensuring that what truly belongs can flourish. The air around the stone bench felt lighter now, free of the unspoken tension that Chloe had brought. The quiet strength of our garden, and our life, was once again undeniable.